Welcome at today's webinar, International SEO, the secret to conquer global audiences. My name is Christina and I work as a junior digital marketing manager at Searchmetrics. I've been with the company for almost 2 years now and I'm a part of our marketing team. And with me is Svetlana Stankovic, of course not in the same room, but online. And she is the digital strategy director at Amplexor, but she worked at Searchmetrics before. So I'm very happy to do the webinar with her today and work together with her again.
Thank you, Christina.
And
hello, everyone.
And just a short introduction about Searchmetrics for all of you that don't know our company. We provide a suite of software and services that delivers data and insights to enable marketers to reach all of their SEO and content marketing goals. And now I will just give you a short introduction to our webinar console. So on the right side, you can see a Q&A box where you can send us your questions, and Svetlana will answer them at the end of this presentation. But if there are too many questions that we can't answer live, we will publish a blog post afterwards, and Svetlana agreed to answer them on our blog. Then you can see a box on the right, which is called the knowledge base, where you can find further information. There are some links that Svetlana will talk about during this webinar, but you can also find the link for our first Searchmetrics Digital Summit that will take place in the end of April. And yeah, if you want to gain more online marketing knowledge, then you should register for that as well. On the left side, there is the speaker bio where you can find information about the two of us. And on the bottom, there's also a webinar help guide. And I'd recommend if you have problems with the sound or with the slides, then you can just refresh your browser or try a different browser, because then most of the problems usually are fixed. And just some organizational information, we will send you an email with the recording by the end of this week. So if you don't have time to watch the whole webinar, don't worry, you will receive the recording afterwards. And then there's one thing that I would like to ask all of you to do. In the end of this webinar, we will have a short survey where we would like to get your feedback, and I would be very happy if you would take part and give us your feedback. Okay, and now I hand over to Svetlana.
Hello, everyone, from my side as well. Hello from my room. It was not planned like this, right, Christina? Because I was working in Searchmetrics before, and we agreed to hug each other and to meet my former team. But unfortunately, we need to do it online. But I think we should definitely thank Internet and our globalization for being able to connect and stay in touch even during these hard times. So today's topic that I will present for you is the topic of international SEO and how to conquer your global audiences. And let's first look at myself and who am I. So I am leading digital strategies in a company called Amplexor. This is a global content consulting company that is helping large and enterprise clients in developing their digital strategies, in translating their websites, in building their web CMSs, and working on a digital experience and many different things that some of them we will cover here. Some of them you can find on our website, which is amplexor.com. But I also worked in Searchmetrics, and before Searchmetrics, I worked in one of the largest publishers called Ringo Axel Springer. So if you want to get in touch with me, you can see my email on your screen, and you can see my Twitter account if you want to follow and learn more about SEO. So today's topic is very interesting, especially here in this unpleasant time that the whole world is going through, because a lot of companies are reshifting and changing their budgets for online marketing. And what we see until now is that performance marketing is affected on large scale. But what we know for sure is that bringing long-term results, this status that we all have, and it's very unfortunate it will stop at a certain point. And if we stop investing in SEO and stop working on our strategies for globalization and internationalization, this will have a long-term effect. So unfortunately, we see that a lot of clients are keeping their SEO budgets and continuing to work on internationalizing, creating content, maybe relaunching the website, because this is also a really good time to relaunch a website, because you can test the audience. So I wanted to share with you just a few facts that are very interesting for our today's topics, and you can see them on your screen. So for example, more than 75% of mobile revenue comes from non-English speaking countries. If you're working in a retail industry or selling services, this is always good to know, because a lot of companies are starting from English and really doubting, shall they translate their website, adapt to global audiences, and so on. Regarding global demand, we can see that 9 out of 10 buyers choose a native language when available. So even if they live in a different country, they prefer their native language because they will understand more about your website and about your offering. And what is really interesting for me is one research that Ahrefs did I think a few months or maybe even a year ago. And this is the survey that showed that 91% of all web pages never get any organic traffic from Google, which is really a shocking term. And I needed to check it a few more times online to make sure that this is a real information, but it definitely is. So imagine 91% of the web never gets organic traffic from Google. So when we look at the search engines worldwide, I think this is very important for everyone who wants to optimize for different search engines. We can see that Google is very dominant. These are really new information and new stats from March 2020. So they're analyzing the past year. We can see that more than 92% of all search engines worldwide are dominated by Google. Then we see Bing and Yahoo, which are both Bing and Yahoo are very important for baby boomers and older audience coming from US. And then we can see our Asian market, that there is presence of Baidu and Yandex and many different ones. So when you start optimizing your website and globalizing your website for your audience, it's really important to know for what search engine are you optimizing for. Because, of course, if you are expanding in Russia or in Czech Republic, they have their own dominant search engines that are not always Google. And you want to make sure that rules are covered from all of them and not just for the dominant one. I collected another information from Statista, which is interesting if you want to globalize your website, but you're not sure which languages you need to include. So we can see that English is on the web during last year, was present in 25%, followed by Chinese. So 19% of all global audience is using Chinese to research for. Then we have 7% Spanish, 5% Arabic languages, and so on. We can see, for example, what is interesting is that French is just 3.3% and German 2%. So again, a lot of it depends on the country where you are from, country that you want to target, or maybe language that you want to target. We will talk about it in our later slides. The concept of this webinar is we have three parts, three pillars. So if you're interested for technical SEO, for all of those technical SEO geeks that are listening, keep watching, because technical SEO will be presented as the last part. But also I want to make sure to cover some strategic basics and some things without which your international SEO wouldn't be successful. And this is building brand internationally and working on your content and resonating with market-specific visitors, and some tips for engaging with different audience. So we are starting from brand messaging. And of course, when you want to message your brand, what is really important is consistent brand communication, because you will be working on your content, on your topics. And imagine having 20 different translators with different views, what your brand is and what kind of messaging you need to deliver. So parts of your website and your communication strategy will be all messed up in different places with different tone of voice. So you want really to make sure that you have a consistent brand communication in place. Then you want to understand audience in a specific market and language. What I always take as a really basic example is a German or DACH audience likes reading information, for example, about product, likes comparison, likes evaluating and comparing what do they get for return of their investment in your product and services. Of course, everyone else likes that the same, but Germans are very detailed and very specific. But when we look at the US audience, they like more quick solutions, marketing savvy, convincing speech. So they would look at different type of content presented on the website. What is also important for brand messaging is offline research and data gathering and knowing market competitors, topics, and potential, not just online, but also offline. In these times of COVID-19, this is really hard, but of course, you can always try to get surveys online, even if they don't necessarily need to be analyzed over SERP data. And then, of course, understanding terminology and market regulation. We could look, for example, at the tobacco industry. In certain countries, they can communicate in one way. In other countries, they have country regulations. Also with life science, pharmaceutical companies. So communication is very different depending on the audience that you speak with. 3 pillars of building a brand in specific markets are communicating your mission, vision, and brand story that, as I said, needs to be adapted to specific languages, measured against competition, because you don't want to communicate something that your competition already communicated, and you don't want to be a copycat or a second. You want to know what's going on in this market even before you join. And then you want to make sure, as I said already, that your brand communication is consistent and that your messaging is adapted to your local language. What is also really important is looking at user personas and defining your user personas and position statements. You want to make sure that your personas are created starting from your global persona. So who is your buyer? Who is your ideal user or your lead that you want to achieve through your website? But also looking at local aspects and looking at the personas in your specific market. Because buyers, for example, of MacBook in US do not necessarily have to be buyer personas of MacBook in Asia or similar. So you want to make sure who is your user persona in specific market and what is your position statement. This is a bit about your brand. I will just wrap up about saying how to position your brand internationally, to perform market analysis, find local SEOs to perform keyword research for you, find linguists to help you adapt your brand messaging and evaluate your website and make a strategy for which markets you want to target, what products and services you want to offer in every chosen market, and are you able to deliver everything that you commit to, and how many SEO resources you have per market. So in this case, this will depend on your strategy. Do you want to have a top-level domain? Do you want to have country-level domains for each country that you are targeting if you're a large brand and all of the websites are managed separately from each other? And you have enough resources and enough SEOs dedicated, enough content writers, then maybe you want to think about having separate domains, or your capabilities are really low at the moment and you want to start low and then expand after the website starts growing. Then you would probably consider on subdirectory, or you want to have unified global strategy. In this case, of course, you will again take a look at one website and subdirectories dedicated to languages or countries. What are the most common brand SEO mistakes? First one is inconsistent brand messaging. Second one is too many countries and languages without enough resources. So imagine a small 20 people team or a company that wants to expand to 5 different markets, and they decide to have 5 different websites and manage them. It is very hard to rank them. It is very hard to manage 5 separate domains. Then incorrect translation of a brand name and brand messaging that is odd and offensive. I prepared some examples for you. They're a bit funny. Brand content that sounds artificial, machine translated, and not touched by human. And offering that does not exist in specific market, but it translated and offered to local users, so-called false promises. So imagine you can deliver just partial offering of your products that you are selling on your retail website, but you translated everything. And then you will have an audience that is reaching out to you, but you cannot sell because simply you have no capabilities of building the product. You cannot not have capabilities of delivering this service in specific markets. So making false promises, especially in the time when expertise and authority in the market with all of the latest Google updates is in place, you don't want to be the company who fakes. I want to show you two fail examples. So the first one is dedicated to KFC. KFC had a slogan all around the world that said it's finger licking good. And it was mistranslated in China with the meaning eat your fingers off. So this is really a fail in the brand messaging. And also imagine if they used this slogan in the time of Corona, it's finger licking good. So it's definitely something that you want to take care about. And you don't want to end up like this. And then we have another one, a slogan from American Dairy Association, Got Milk, that for Spanish-speaking audiences sounded like, are you lactating? So this is something you definitely want to avoid. And with this, I'm wrapping up our brand messaging part. And I want to share with you some tools that will help you with analyzing your brand and doing brand SEO analysis. So the first one is looking at the Searchmetrics software and the market insights, where you can analyze specific keywords and specific domains and their market performance and get insights from all the competitors. Second one would be Google Trends. I just want to say one more thing before I explain all of them, is take a screenshot or write it down, because we shared some links with instructions for optimizing your technical SEO, but those links are unfortunately not shared in our knowledge panel. So if you're interested for them, just take a screenshot with your phone or write them down. So Google Trends, I think most of you know how to use it. For those who don't, Google Trends is a tool that shows us a trend over historical views. So we want to see how are the trends for your product, how are the trends for your brand name or something similar. You can use this and separate all the topics per countries that they're coming from, and also even get some content ideas. Third one I really like. It's not meant for analysis, but it's very useful when you want to build your persona template. This is a HubSpot free tool called exactly like this, HubSpot persona template. So you can get a nice template with questions that you need to answer, and you can create your ideal personas and send it out to your writers or someone who is taking care of globalizing your website. And Qualtrics is a brand that has a tool called Market Research Panels, which is really useful, especially in the time of COVID, but it can be useful any time, any given time. That is a tool that does global surveys and market-targeted surveys from the real audience. So if you want to see what is the status for your product or your service or informational query that you're interested in, you can prepare like a small test, and Qualtrics will deliver it to the real people in real targeted markets, and you will get your market research done online without a hassle that you actually do it on spot. The second topic I want to cover during this webinar is content SEO. This is really an important topic because when we talk about content SEO, we also, for internationalizing content, we talk about translation. We talk about different aspects of translation, but also where to start from. What to do with your website content and how to adapt global messaging to your local audience. I've built a content workflow example for you, and I want to show you how to take care of all of the parts of a content workflow. So first, you want to define website areas you want to publish for desired markets. And if you stay with us, I will show you how to define what URLs to translate and how to measure what is the amount of translation you need to achieve for your website. Second step is perform SEO research with the help of a local expert. This is a really important one because doing SEO research just based on the SEO expert or your dedicated content person or linguist who doesn't really understand the market and is not fluent in one specific language or market that you are targeting can lead to misinterpretation and targeting wrong keywords. And then targeting wrong keywords can lead to targeting wrong audience and so on. Then we have really important part. This is translating and adapting all of the content that you have on your website. There are three different types of translations. First is machine translation. Second one is human translation. And the third one is transcreation, which is a bridge between doing translation and creating unique content with a given tone of voice, with the concrete briefs and concrete goals to be achieved. And then you want to publish and optimize content on unified website structure. This is also really important. And sometimes companies, especially when they work globally and they have large brands, they don't really set it properly, giving each country or each region to optimize their own website by themselves. What happens there is that they don't coordinate with each other, and simply architecture of one website looks dramatically different than architecture of a different one. And even if they implement Hreflang tags, sometimes it is really hard for search engines, especially Google, to understand, is this content related to the content on other websites? Then you want to track performance of published content. Is it targeting the right audience? Do you have return of investment in every market that you want to target? This is something that companies usually don't do, because most of the time they have one dedicated SEO or a small SEO team that is looking at their dominant, let's say, English, or in our case, we are sitting in Germany, so it can be German or French market. And they don't pay that much attention on other markets and how do they perform, or are there any concrete errors that need to be fixed from technical or content view, or are they simply getting really generic keywords or targeting completely wrong audience? In this case, I would suggest even booking a small agency or booking a freelancer that will do this tracking for you is much better than giving it to one SEO that is already overwhelmed with their own primary work. Then you, of course, want to republish and improve content that is not performing and understand why this content is not performing. And what is, I think, the most important part after you internationalize your website, and where a lot of companies are making really typical mistakes, this is organizing a steady content workflow for all new pages that will be published in the future. Because you want to be the one who is in charge of your newsroom. You want to be the one who is in charge of optimizing, having specific process of keyword analysis, splitting pages or on level of importance, and so on. And you don't want to let it for some team who is sitting maybe in a country where your company has presence or will have, without controlling and without knowing how this corresponds with your global SEO strategy. Then when we talk about translating all of your content, there are very different approaches of human translation. We cannot make clear cuts between them, but what to do with content. So you can do a standard translation. This is usually done with some facts that you need to translate, with descriptions of your product, with descriptions of your services, and they're very accurate, where standard translation is enough for satisfying the need for your website. Then you have a marketing translation. So in this case, you need translation that is more persuasive, that is faithful. You want someone who understands marketing and not just the linguist who is experienced in the language. Because imagine giving a linguist who is working and translating IT or legal documents, giving this person to translate your marketing material where you want to attract, maybe for your digital agency, you want to attract new audience. So this person will definitely not understand. So you want to make sure that not just the person who is translating your content is actually understanding your topic, but also has marketing experience to know which parts need to be translated, which parts can be kept in English and as they are. Then I said transcreation. Transcreation is a bridge between content creation and marketing translation. So you want someone who will translate, but at the same place, this person will research for keywords. This person will take care of marketing specific parts and can create content that is motivational and conceptual. And then the last one, and not the least, is creating content. So sometimes you want to create content from scratch, because even if you're talking about your products in different markets, in different continents, you want to have a different positioning, and you want to be really original, authentic. If you're targeting a younger audience, you want to use slang in specific countries, and you want to restructure everything that is unified in your global strategy and adapt to local audience. Then we have websites and companies who want to do machine translation for SEO. So we saw this when there were different add-ons with Google Translation or a lot of free tools. But now machine translation is becoming better and better. And I think even Search Engine Land wrote a couple of months ago about Google saying that machine translation is okay now because it's becoming better and better and translation memory is much stronger. But then still we have pros and cons for using clear translation, machine translation. First pro is speed, because when you use the software, when you use the machine, you just need to extract the content of your website and it will be translated by the machine. So you don't need to wait for a human and you don't need to do revisions of your content. Then we have costs as a really important factor, especially for smaller companies or companies who don't have huge resources to invest. And then we see that quality of neural machine translation, they're using AI and it's getting better and better. So this is definitely a pro. And of course, efficiency, because there is no need to manage the large team of project manager, linguist, content writer, and all of the others. You simply have a software. Software will deliver your machine translation and it will be much more efficient. And can also be combined with the human post-edit. So you can do machine translation over some translation tool, and then human can read it and check everything. Does the content flow? Does it sound correct, and so on. Cons are, of course, literal translation of keywords. So in this case, with machine translation, you don't have keywords. You are just translating the content. And there is no clear SEO strategy behind it. There is a lot of risk of having content duplication, duplicated phrases, duplicated parts of the content, because machine translation memory is one, and it's learning how to correlate keywords and words with different phrases group with different sentences. So it may happen that simply content duplication is much higher than you want to have throughout the whole website, because you have a website with specific topic, and this is something that you definitely want to avoid. Then incorrect or absent tone of voice, because in this case, you don't have your brand statement, you cannot position your website. And these are all things where you should not maybe consider machine translation. What would be the best approach? So you have a website and you want to decide what to do. I gave you this different examples. And you want to say, okay, what do I do now with this? So I can use machine, I can use human, I can write content. There is a strategy behind it that I would like to recommend. Take your important stakeholders for business, for SEO, for creating content, and try to define what are your top pages or priority pages. And for these pages, use content creation or transcreation as the highest level of translation services. Top pages, I can just give you an example. So this can be a home page. Those can be all of the pages in your main menu or main products and services informational pages, or maybe perhaps about us page that is communicating about your brand. But this is something, again, that you need to decide with your stakeholders. Then define a second level priority pages based on your overall strategy, search volume of keywords, and SERP competitors, and use machine translation with human post edit, but always test the quality on smaller sample first, and human translation into a desired language. And with blog, articles, pages, news, and dynamic content parts, try to write unique content in local languages, and try to transcreate content with the help of SEO or SEO linguist. When you are optimizing your website and working with translation or a globalization company, this company will most of the time use connectors to extract your website CMS content into their translation management system. What you need to care about is that they will be translating all of the parts of your website, but you want to make sure that to the translators you are delivering your whole structure. You want to have URL naming convention translated and not kept in English. You want to have all of your on-page SEO elements translated. So we're talking about the title tag, we're talking about meta description, about headings, about subheadings. You want to make sure that your internal links function and they're in place, and there maybe their anchor texts are also translated. And you want to have to make sure that your pictures and visuals and namings and descriptions of all the visual elements are also translated and not kept in English. Then some of the websites who want to optimize for international will search for proxy solutions. So they will search for solutions that function like CDN. So there will be content served and mirrored from your website and presented from different proxy servers. So it is not content that will exist on your website. What are the websites that do this and go for the solutions? Those are typically the websites that have really complex CMS systems, who don't have crazy high amount of audience in specific markets, and they're searching for quick solutions. This is completely okay, but you need to care about some things in order to optimize proxy solutions and to be able to perform in specific markets. First is correct implementation of Hreflang tags. You will see when your website is mirrored by a proxy software or a proxy solution, head section of your website will stay untouched. They will not be able to implement your Hreflang tags. So this is something that you need to do from your side, either changing head section throughout your website or maybe adding your Hreflang tags in your XML sitemap to help Google understanding which page belongs to which country or which language or region. Then you want to make sure that there is no content duplication between proxy solutions and your main website. And third, that is also a really important one, is preventing various crawlers to crawl the website to avoid additional costs. Having proxy solution, you will be charged each time when there is a visit to your website and to your proxy hosted URL. So you want to make sure that there is no competition using Searchmetrics crawl to crawl your website completely. And then if your website has 500,000 pages, you will have a dramatic increase of costs for your proxy solutions. And of course, I want to wrap up this part related to content SEO with the content governance and what you need to take care about when you're publishing your content for different markets. You want to have unique content, so you need to perform plagiarism check as a standard to ensure that your content is unique. You want content to be user-centric, so the user is engaged and you're targeting the right audience. You want to have optimized content with keyword optimization and proper implementation of on-page SEO elements. Also internal linking validation. So if you're translating a website and you're pointing to some links, you want to see, for example, you're translating to French, you want to make sure that all of the internal links that are existing on English page will correspond with internal links on the French page. So there is a lot more work that you need to do rather than just translating and optimizing the website. And you definitely need to use crawls in order to track and discover all of this. Then you want to optimize your data layouts to have a good use of structural elements and content formatting. You want to have a voice consistency, as we spoke about already in the brand section, and crowd testing. Try to test it with local audience to see if this is something that really corresponds or there are some things that you need to fix in order for content to perform. Most common content SEO mistakes. First is literal translation of keyword and phrases. This will not work. You will target completely wrong audience and you will not perform in different markets. Mixing content in different languages on the same page. This is something that we oftentimes see, especially with B2B clients. So they have their main page in English and then they have a French page, and because they don't have resources to translate all of the news and all of the information about their web, they simply start mixing pages with French and English and maybe German all together. This doesn't work, and you will really give a hard time to search engines in discovering what is the content of this page, even if you have Hreflang tags and you're describing it. So this is something you definitely want to avoid. What to do in this case, use internal links rather than placing content with a different language. So inform your user, inform your crawlers that this is my French part of the page, and if you want to read more, visit our English page and then you can link to it. So you want to avoid that this content is actually existing on the French page. Then you want to avoid, as I said already in the previous slides, you want to avoid machine translation without human post-edit. You don't want to have different website architecture on different country level domains. So you want to make sure that your top structure or top architecture is somehow corresponding to your local ones. And This is also a really common one, is adapting English keywords that are globally known by original names. So this is why you need to perform research with your local SEO expert, because if you are translating keywords in German and these keywords are usually used in English, even in Germany, then this is again mismatch with your audience. I also want to recommend 3 tools in this case. Oh, sorry, I went a bit too far. So I want to recommend 3 tools. First is Grammarly. This is a plagiarism checker. So check if your content is unique, if it's not copied, because even if it's translated, sometimes translators or machine translation maybe is copying different parts or duplicating content. So you want to make sure that your content does not exist anywhere else online except on your own website. And you want to use plagiarism checker. Then there is a tool that I really like and like playing around with it. And for those who haven't heard of it, I highly recommend that you go online and search for it. This is IBM Watson NLP tool, so natural language processing. This is a tool that will help you discover how your content or your URL content, or you can copy paste the parts of your content, is perceived from a machine, so from an AI software. And you can see what is the sentiment of your content, what are the main entities, are they matching the topic that you want to be matched, and overall, how would potentially Google or other search engines look at your content when they would be this machine. So this is a great machine. I definitely suggest you to visit this website. And then there is a tiny Chrome add-on called Chatbot that can quickly help you scanning your on-page SEO. Of course, you can do it with tools like Searchmetrics or SEMrush or any others that will also point to all of the errors that you have in title tags, meta descriptions, and so on. But this is a really useful add-on because you can just click on it and you will get a quick crawl of your website and see if there is something like missing on your content or there is duplication between your title tags, between your headings, and so on. So I definitely recommend checking these 3 tools. And now we want to talk about technical SEO. And as I said in my previous slides, I would really like to recommend you, because I have this question a lot, how do we internationalize our website? How do we globalize it? And how many pages we actually need to optimize and translate? What is really useful at looking at is a correlation between all the pages that are indexed, let's say in Google, and the pages that are ranking, so the pages that are bringing some keywords on your website. Usually, not all of the pages that are indexed are ranking well for keywords. So when we look at the number of pages who are, for example, ranking for the first 20 positions in SERP, compared to the number of all index pages, you will see that there is a large disproportion. So if I'm talking here of your primary market, so before you go to internationalizing your website, and if you see that there is this large disproportion, for example, you have 200 pages ranked with keywords on really good positions, and you have 1,000 pages indexed overall, the question is, do you want to translate and optimize all of the 1,000 pages if they're not performing even in your even in your main market where you put all of your SEO efforts? So I would say you can use this little strategy to estimate the number of pages that you want to have translated and optimized for SEO in specific markets. So with the Google Site command, you can find out how many pages on the website are currently indexed. Then you can download a full list of keywords via Searchmetrics, SEMrush, or any other tool that you are using. Or if you're not using paid tools at the moment, alternatively, you can download Excel list of queries from your Google Search Console. You can go to a column where all your URLs that are returning for these queries are mentioned. You can easily, from Excel, if you're working with Excel, you can easily clean all of the duplicate lines, and you can filter by keywords that are ranking on the first 20 positions in SERP. This number of URLs would show you what ideally you should be translating or optimizing with SEO on different markets. So start from this number, see how it works, and then go ahead with other products and go ahead with other needs. Then we have a major, and I think the first question that we want to start with when we are working on a technical SEO optimization, this is country or language internationalization. So you can have a global website and you can have languages that audience can pick, And you can, on the other hand, have countries that audience can pick and decide from. How do you choose? Will you use language targeting or will you use country targeting? Are you doing your business internationally and wish to communicate and give information on various languages of your customers? In this case, use language targeting. Do you want to target specific markets rather than specific languages? Are you launching your business in different markets, in specific markets? So are you launching in Spain rather than targeting all Spanish-speaking audience? Then you want to have country targeting. In this case, when implementing Hreflang tag, there are supported formats, so you need to take care of them. Language codes. This is a very common mistake, writing language or country codes incorrectly. So I'm giving you here a resource of Wikipedia. What are supported language codes for Google? So this is a ISO 639.1 is a language code that is supported. And with country code, we have ISO 3166.1. So you want to make sure to go and copy from the sources I gave you. You want to go and copy all of the codes into your Hreflang tag and correct if they are correctly implemented. How to implement Hreflang tags. For those who don't know what are Hreflang tags, those are tags that are describing your reference language. So your main page that you are on and all of the reference languages for different languages or different regions that you have within your domain or globally on different domains corresponding with your main brand. There are three types of implementations of Hreflang tags. Those are information I gave in a knowledge panel. So when you start optimizing and looking at the technical SEO, you will see that there is a bunch of resources from Google, and I will in this case use Google because it's the most relevant one. And go there and check how to do each and every single implementation in depth. We will cover it here, but if you want to read more about it, I highly recommend go to your knowledge panel and copy paste these links. So we have three levels of implementing Hreflang tags: HTTP header, HTML tags, and XML sitemap. We will start for HTTP header. So why do you use HTTP header? Most commonly, it's used for supporting non-HTML files, like you have PDFs and visuals, and you want to send a response to Google where to search for alternatives in different languages. In this case, you will use HTTP header, but it's for some reason used also sometimes even instead of HTML, which is, of course, not an error. But in this case, you want to make sure that you have your URL present and that you have your language code present. And you will use the format in the header starting with link, describing your URL, alternative, and giving Hreflang codes and their links. So you can see one example. How does it look like in the bottom of my screen? How the ideal structure would look like in case you have German for Switzerland, and you have a German overall PDF, so you can see how does it look like. The second one, the most common, is implementation of HTML tags. And this is implementing in the head of your HTML section on the page that you have variations in different languages or different regions. You want to have a link reference, so alternate reference to the pages that correspond to the certain page. You also want to make sure that you have X default for all the pages that are not translated. For example, I'm visiting from France, but you have a website in English, and you have a website in German, and you have a website in Chinese, but not in French. Putting X default tag code will send the user, like myself, to the default language that you want to be shown. What is important with HTML tags? I suggest you to screenshot this one or to mark it somehow, but because those are things that users forget about. So each language version must list itself together with all language variations. What does this mean? On the page that I work with, and this is the page that is translated on 5 different languages, I want to have all Hreflang tags on all 5 pages corresponding with each other. I want to make sure to include X default tags for all missing languages and regions, so users can be sent to a specific page, and I want to be the one who decides what is the default page. If 2 variations of pages do not point to each other and back, tags will be ignored by Google. What does this mean? I have an hreflang in English version and pointing to hreflang in French, but someone lands on a French version and there is no tag pointing back to the English one. So Google will completely ignore all of the hreflangs if this is the case. If you're targeting regions with multiple languages, they can have separate variations of pages. So if you are targeting Switzerland as a country and you want to target German, you want to target French, they can have different variations. If you are targeting, if your variations have the same content, for example, German in Germany and German in Switzerland, then of course you can still have two pages, and with hreflang tags, you are permitting Google to see both and to understand which one belongs to which language. And of course, when you implement them correctly and back, you will not have duplication issues in this case. You can also use canonicals, but using canonicals, you need to remember when you put canonical on next to HTML, canonical is dominant, and this means that only one of these two pages will be indexed. All pages must have unique URLs, being on subdomain, subdirectories, or URLs itself. So they cannot avoid using one URL for multiple languages and serving content with cookies and scripts, because this will not work. Google will understand only sometimes when it crawls and indexes page, it will understand it belongs to one language. Next time it will understand it belongs to different language or different region. So you want definitely to make sure that you have different URLs for different languages. Specifying only region without the language is not supported. So in this case, if I would write GB stating for Great Britain and don't have EN as English language in hreflang tags, this will be not supported and Google will simply not see it. And when talking about mobile, AMP pages do not have to have hreflang tags as long as they keep canonicals pointing to their desktop default version of them. Because if you have on your desktop page, if you have hreflangs implemented correctly, and from AMP you have a canonical implemented, you don't have to implement hreflangs again on AMP part of the page. Then the third one is XML Sitemap. So for some reason you want to have your alternate links stated in XML Sitemap rather than on your HTML. There are various reasons. I gave you one example using Proxy solution to translate your website. You will probably need to use XML Sitemap in order to describe what languages and what regions correspond to what pages. And here you have an example. Again, I remind you on the knowledge base, you can look at it, you can find detailed instructions on how to do it. So you need to put your log page, your main page, and then you will put XHTML link pages with alternate tags explaining what is the hreflang, so what is the language, and what is the reference to the link. Then I have this question a lot, and I think a lot of SEOs are asking, and this actually is a suggestion that oftentimes comes from management or from someone who doesn't really understand SEO as itself, but wants to have a page in different country or different region, and they want users to land directly and be redirected directly to the stated page. This is very common for large brands, and a lot of them are doing geo-targeting based on their IP addresses or where the users come from. What does Google say? So Google says both users and search engines from specific regions should be set to the same variation of the page to prevent cloaking. So if you are redirecting, if your company decided to redirect all of the users in French automatically, even if they type .com or they type .de, if you decided to automatically redirect them to French, you need to make sure that all of the bots from search engines are also redirected. So you don't want to serve different content for users and different content for bots. Google also suggests avoiding automatic redirections that cannot let users choose which version is preferred version. I see this a lot as an SEO. Oftentimes we need to use VPN or some other solution in order to see country variation of the page. Because even if you are, let's say, on the French version of the page and you want to go to button that will move you to the English one, you constantly are like in a loop of redirection to the French one. Google suggests not to do so. And they suggest, this is a screenshot that I took from Google Guide from a Gummy Bears page example. They suggest that if user landed on a .com or .de, you keep this user on this page, but you can add like a little banner with suggestion of user that they can visit the page that is more appropriate for their region or language. In this case, you give an option for user to choose, and you are not creating this automatic redirection loops. Different versions must have different URLs. They should not be served with cookies and scripts. So this is important for the ones who want to serve through JavaScript different content on the web on the same page with the same URL path. This will lead to errors. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but you need to make sure that all of your URLs for different language or region variations have different URLs in order for Google to crawl and understand which one belongs to where. So in this case, I would suggest using Hreflang tags as a part of your HTML head section rather than just using one URL and serving the content through scripts. What are the most common technical SEO mistakes? I wanted to point them out here. First one would be incorrect language and country codes. We mentioned it already. Take a look at the Wikipedia source, find all the country codes, implement them correctly. Pages missing returning links for Hreflang annotations in various languages. Multiple versions of pages for different languages served from one single URL. Mixing canonical and Hreflang tags. This is really, really common. So do not put, if you have Hreflang tags, do not put canonicals, because the moment you put canonical, your page will be canonicalized. What you do exactly with this? You are pointing a page that has canonical to the canonicalized version, and Google will index just one of these versions. So imagine you have on all of your language variations canonical pointing to English version, only English version will be indexed. So never mix canonicals with Hreflang tags. Also, really common mistake is placing Hreflang HTML tags in the page body section. Sometimes developers would say, well, it's not possible to put it in the head section, so I just put it in the body. This also doesn't work. It can lead to multiple mistakes in indexing incorrect language pages for incorrect languages or regions. So make sure if you're implementing Hreflang HTML tags that they are implemented in the head section of your HTML page. Important online resources, I stated them, as I said, down in the knowledge panel. Everything we talked about here related to technical SEO, you can read more in copying all of the documentation from our knowledge panel. And for the end, I just want to suggest some useful tools for technical SEO that will help you when you're testing, is your SEO ready to be ranked on multiple languages and regions that you want. First, we have aledasolis.com. This is a woman who is an international SEO expert. She built a tool called Hreflang Tags Generator Tool. If you have a small website, if you have HTML website and you want to generate your Hreflang tags, with her tool, you can just put your main URL, you can put the languages, regions that you want to target. She will, or her tool will generate the HTMLs and you can copy it in your head section. Then a website called technicalseo.com. You have Hreflang tag tester if you want to test Hreflang tags that are implemented already. And you have local adaptive tester if you want to test how does it function in different regions. Then you have hreflang.ninja. This is also an Hreflang annotations of a page. Again, all of the tools are free, so you feel free to use it. And then this is something that I really personally like because it's super easy to use, even as myself, as being an SEO and analyzing all of the websites. I'm super obsessed, and you will see in my recommendations with all of the Chrome add-ons. There is really great Chrome add-on called Hreflang Tag Checker. It automatically checks, are all Hreflang tags incorrected properly on the page you want to test? And also, do they have Hreflang back responding to the main page? So feel free to visit all of those. And I think with this one, we came to the end of our webinar. So I will be calling Christina to help me looking at maybe potential questions that you had during our webinar.
Okay, yes, thank you very much for the presentation. That was very interesting and I learned a lot, and I hope that our audience will be able to not making these mistakes anymore. And I already see that we have, yeah, I see that we have a lot of questions. Yes. So I think we should really do the blog post together. And I will just choose some questions for the last 5 minutes. I see here is one that from Alexandra. She asks, when choosing an international market for expansion, how would you use SEO to decide which one has the biggest potential? How would you approach this analysis?
This is a good question. So how would I analyze which markets I want to target? I would look at existing Google Analytics and which regions I'm targeting already. Then I would use a tool like, as I said, Searchmetrics, Market Insights, or any SEO tool that you're using in-house. I would check which market is competition targeting. And I would try also with some Research Cloud or similar tool to download all the keywords of my competition in specific market and see what do they rank for. And if I see that there is a high potential, if I see that those keywords that are ranking well for competition in different languages are having really good visibility, and I would try to decide. So I would definitely look at what I can do now from my own perspective. I would try to combine it with the business decisions. But I think even with analyzing competition, analyzing your Google or Adobe Analytics, you can already make a list of dominant countries and you can cross-match it with your current status on your main website. Because even if you, for example, have a company in France and you have some interesting product, you will see that there is audience coming from different countries to research for your product and they're landing. So this is in shortest how I would approach it.
Okay. And then there's another question of Kevin, and he asks, would you advise on optimizing for English versions as well as local language versions for each country, or would you advise on adding the English popular term on the local language page, as most local speakers may use the English business terms?
So I would definitely test my audience and I would analyze keywords and see if English terms are used. I would use English terms, but if I see, for example, that there is a presence of English terms and translated terms, I would make an assumption that I would like to target both. So maybe in a case that more searches are coming from English version, I would optimize my title tags and my headings and everything for this English version keywords, but I would definitely make sure to mention throughout my content and maybe in the first paragraphs these other versions, because if you're already writing or translating content on your local versions, it's really easy to implement these local terms as well. So a lot of it depends on the SEO data that I would look at. And none of it is right and wrong and can be applied to everything.
Okay. Great. Then we have a question of Marco. If I have a domain with .com, are there good chances to rank for pages in different languages like German or Italian?
Yes, if you have a .com domain and you want to target different languages, of course, you have good chance to rank. The only thing you need to take care about is having hreflang tags and separating your languages in different folders. So, for example, you have domain.com /en/your content, or you have domain.com /fr/your content, then you will have no reasons not to rank with your .com domain. So it's possible, yes.
Okay. And maybe one last question, as we have 1 minute left, from Edward. What would you suggest for href tags on an e-commerce site with 2 stores? UK store should target the UK and rest of the world store should target everywhere apart from the UK with different prices.
This is really interesting question. So it also really depends of, do you want to target specific languages or you want to target worldwide? If you want to target worldwide and you don't really care, then I would suggest having English version that is dedicated to UK for one site and having X default for the rest of the world. Yeah, so it really depends. I would also look at the possibilities in different languages, because sometimes if you have UK for English and you have US for English, let's say, and others, I would take a look at maybe you want to implement also other languages and translate your website. If not, I would definitely use X default for US and for other countries that you want to target. You simply need to make a decision. So there is no code that you can use saying, okay, I target worldwide.
Mm-hmm. Great. And I would say we keep the rest of the questions for the blog post. And yeah, thank you very much, Svetlana. That was a great webinar. And thank you to our audience. It would be great if you could participate in our survey. And have a good day and rest of the week.
Thank you very much, and talk to you soon.